So like I said several times over the last 2 weeks on the book of Exodus, the main goal in Exodus is to free the Hebrew people, to bring them back to the land that God promised Abraham, but most importantly, to practice worship. Okay? It was all about getting them to worship God once again, because they weren't doing it as slaves in Egypt. Okay? They weren't doing it there. And so it's only fitting that the next book after Exodus is the book of Leviticus. A very unfamiliar, I think, book for many of us. Not the one, the Leviticus is the book where if you sit down and say, well, I have a goal, I'm going to read the Bible from front to cover, and you read Genesis and you read Exodus, and then you get to a couple chapters in Leviticus, and all of a sudden you start skipping days. You start putting it off to the side, and before you know it, it's the end of the year and you're still on chapter 3 of Leviticus. But it is still an important book for us. Okay, so you got to remember that they're all, if it's in Scripture, it's vital. Okay, so Leviticus is all about the laws, the rules for worship. Okay, that's the purpose. Again, like I said, Exodus was about getting the people to worship God. Here's how they're going to do it. Okay, and so many of the chapters deal with uncleanliness and cleanliness, profane and holy. What makes something clean, what makes it unclean, what makes it holy, what makes it profane. How is that all that relevant for us today? Well, all of that is kind of summed up in the sacrament of confession. Think of it that way. Confession is the cleansing and the holy process that we go to in order then to worship God. Okay? So just think of it that way. So when you think of what's clean, confession. Sacrament of reconciliation. Today's first reading gives us the list of all the feast days, the major solemn feast days that they're going to celebrate throughout the year. It tells us that time is also holy. Okay? And we've taken those feast days and we incorporated it within the new covenant, okay, and our act of worship, which now is centered around the person of Jesus Christ. So let's just look at us right now and how we consecrate time. I mean, right now we're doing it in the morning, which I think is very proper. In the morning, what do? We come to Mass, okay? We offer worship, we offer sacrifice in a context of a meal. And again, we celebrate the Eucharist, which means thanksgiving. We sanctify our day by first and foremost giving thanks to God for the very act of creation and also the very act of his redemption of our lives. So we have a daily sanctification of our lives, especially when we come to Mass. We also have a weekly sanctification, okay, on Sunday. Sunday, in the Christian sense, is our first and also our 8th day. First day, the act of creation. The 8th day, the act of redemption, the passion, death, resurrection, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so weekly, our lives are sanctified. We can even say monthly that I'm doing it with the incorporation of the First Friday devotions. Okay? Monthly, we have a cycle, a rhythm. And then finally, yearly, we have a yearly sanctification throughout all of our liturgical seasons of the church. These seasons, they're not just here because it's nice and, let's just do some different stuff. No, beginning with Advent, where Advent leads us into the darkest days of the year for us who live above the northern equator, above that. The darkest days of the year, we celebrate Advent, what the coming of Christ. Remembering his first coming and also looking forward to the second coming, which leads to Christmas, which is around the first day of winter, which means that light is increasing. In the darkest days of our life, what happens after Christmas? The light slowly increases, in our surroundings. Then we get to around springtime, where we celebrate Lent, a preparation, a penitential season, leading to the most important part of our year. Okay, where also it culminated with in agriculture, where the first fruits would come in. But Easter, passion, death, resurrection of Jesus Christ. So we as Catholics, we haven't, in a way, we put aside Leviticus, but its purposes and intentions we have not left behind. The whole purpose of Leviticus is to get us to worship and to always remember that what we do throughout the whole day, week, monthly, and year, it's time that is holy. We haven't abandoned that concept of Leviticus. And that's where the book of Leviticus becomes very practical and so also very useful for us today. May God bless you.